got a mock draft roundup coming in from some experts all across the interwebs. We're going to start off talking about Mel Kiper of ESPN, Daniel Jeremiah of the NFL.com, NFL Network, and on top of that, we got Trevor Sikkema of PFF. They all put out a mock draft recently, and I want to just go through what they had to say and the player they had the Saints selecting at number 14 overall. But if you're pumped up, the NFL draft will be here before you know it. I need you to hit that thumbs up icon, like today's video. Let's try to get 300 likes, because if we get 300 likes, I have a really good feeling that the Saints are going to knock this draft out of the park. Maybe it's something close to the 2017 draft. Who knows? But let's kick this thing off with Mel Kiper at number 1. No surprises there. Caleb Williams, number 2. Jaden Daniels actually jumps Drake May in his mock draft. Marvin Harrison going to number 4. You got the LSU wide receiver and Malik Neighbors. He has been getting some buzz at being the first wide receiver taken off the board. Odunze at number 6 to the Giants. Joe Alt, the best offensive lineman in this draft, at number 7. The Atlanta Falcons shore up the edge rusher position and add some defensive talent in Dallas Turner. And Jared Verse, Brock Bowers, J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix for picks 9 through 12. I know a lot of Saints fans want Verse or Bowers, but in terms of the Saints pick, J.C. Latham is off the board, so you go with Olu Fashanu, the offensive tackle out of Penn State. He is a solid player, and I think that he could make a big impact on the Saints defense. Now, we're going to kick it over to the Daniel Jeremiah mock draft and see what he had the Saints selecting. Here's how the results went before the Saints pick. In this one, Daniel Jeremiah had Drake May going to the Commanders, Jaden Daniels falling to number 3. J.J. McCarthy was traded up for by the Minnesota Vikings to be selected at number 4. Maserati Marv at number 5. Malik Neighbors, Joe Alt, Dallas Turner, Rome Odunze, and Talisi Fuaga to round out the top 10. But as for the last 4 picks leading up to the Saints, Jared Verse to the Cardinals, Brock Bowers to the Broncos, Michael Penix is heading out to the Sin City, and Olu Fashanu is headed to the boot. Now, last one. Let's go through the PFF mock draft. Not a lot of things changed here, but you do see Maserati Marv getting traded up for by the Chargers to be selected at number 5 over... not traded up for, excuse me. They have the number 5 selection. Marvin Harrison goes to the Chargers at number 5. Rome Odunze follows. Joe Alt, Dallas Turner to the Titans and the Falcons. Those are very common picks for a lot of mock drafts I've seen. Malik Neighbors to the Bears at number 9. Troy Fontenot to the Jets at number 10. Talisi Fuaga, the offensive tackle from Oregon State, to the Birds. And then Olu Fashanu at number 14 for the Saints. Now, what does this tell me? Well, it's pretty simple. This tells me that the Saints are pretty much a lock to go offensive line in the first round. And this also tells me that all of the draft experts are really, really high on the Saints selecting Olu Fashanu. For the record, I think it's a great pick. I would love that selection in New Orleans. And I think that it's going to be a bona fide roster builder piece that's going to be he will be around for a long time. And I have a lot of thoughts to dive into, as well as what the experts were saying. But would you draft Olu Fashanu? Just give me just give me a draft or a pass in the comment section. I'm going to be interacting with what you guys got to say. I want you guys to sound off and make your voices heard. Now, for the rest of today's show, I want to take a deep dive into Olu Fashanu as a potential pick for the New Orleans Saints, because he is an intriguing prospect, and he is a very talented, very experienced offensive tackle that could really, really help out, especially at that left tackle position. But we do have to give a shout out to today's presenting sponsor, and it is Prize Picks. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. It's the #1 daily fantasy sports app in North America, and they've got specials for new and returning users alike for March Madness. When you head over to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Now, football season may be over, but the action on the hardwood is just heating up. Whether it's March Madness or the fight for the NBA playoffs, there's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of the year. Get into the excitement with Prize Picks. It's America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, and you can turn your hoops knowledge into some serious cash. Now, the picks that I went with, this Caitlin Clark selection, it is a promo they're running. She's going to score a point. So, of course, I'm rolling with the more. I'm also liking Roddy Anderson to go more than 5.5 rebounds and assists, and Terrence Shannon. I liked more than 24.5 points. March Madness kicks off. It's already kicked off with the first 4, and tonight they have the second round of the 4 games to see who can make the March Madness tournament, and you can pick more or less right now. PrizePicks is also giving us a free pick for Caitlin Clark's matchup on Saturday, just more than 0.5 points for Caitlin Clark, and pair it with another winner for 3 times your money. PrizePicks is simple. You pick more or less than on 2 to 6 players, and you can win some real money. So get started at prizepicks.com/CLNS. Plug in that promo code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. Shout out to PrizePicks for making today's shows possible. Everything is in the comment section and description of this video. Now let's talk offensive line here because I think it's important to set the scene here. Obviously, Trevor Penning was not the starting left tackle all season. Andrus Peat filled in as the left tackle. Penning was not any better. Like Andrus Peat was better than Trevor Penning. Trevor Penning was bad, just plain and simple. You need offensive tackle help. You need specifically left tackle help. And let's take a look at the draft profile for Olu Fashanu. 6'6", 312 pounds. He's got 34-inch arms and 8.5-inch hands. Gonna say this, 8.5 inches in this regard, it's pretty impressive if you ask me. Just making a joke. A clear franchise left tackle who should get picked early. I think that Olu Fashanu could be a guy who gets selected, dare I say, in the top 10. He could be a top offensive lineman off the board, but I also could see a world where he falls to number 14. And this guy played every single snap with the Nittany Lions at left tackle. And for an exact number, that's 1,347 snaps at the left tackle position. He's a smart player. He has a high football IQ. And on top of that, he returned to Penn State so he could get his degree and grow into a better player. And I absolutely admire that. And I love that he prioritized getting his things together, making sure he's smart, and making sure that he has a plan for after football. It's very admirable to me, if you ask me. But I want to kick it to this clip from the NFL Scouting Combine where he discusses playing a player like Max Crosby and an energetic guy and how he can defend those types of players. So let's throw it over to Olu Fashanu and see what he has to say.
I could really point out, like Max Crosby, for instance. Max Crosby, he'll get a lot of wins with his first pass rush move, right? But a lot of his successes come from his second move. So he'll get off the ball. He'll engage with an O lineman. The O lineman will have his hands on him, but Max Crosby will one way or another get the O lineman's hands off of him, and he'll finish the play. Make the sack. And in terms of the way that I counter, high energy guys and stuff like that, and that has a lot to do with my grip strength. So again, like once I get my hands on a D lineman, I understand that the play is not over. I got to keep straining, got to keep, showing a lot of effort, and, the play isn't over until that ball's in the air.
Now, I love what Olu Fashanu had to say about once he gets his hands on you, he's there. He's locking you in, and he knows how to adapt to energetic players. He knows how to counter a lot of different types of play styles, whether it's bull rush, whether it's speed, no matter what it is. Olu Fashanu, I think, could be an excellent selection. And there are some pros and cons to discuss. He does have a prototype for his size and athletic ability. I mean, this dude is a freak, and he moves incredibly well. He's not a great finisher in the run game, though. That is something that he needs to work on. And the Saints' run defense last year, or run offense, was pretty lackluster. And on top of that, I think the offensive line is to blame. He is really, really good at pass blocking, though. So in terms of helping Derek Carr throw the ball and try and extend drives and keep drives alive and have explosive plays, I'm all in on that. But he did have 10 pressures throughout the season, and 6 of those came against Ohio State. Now, obviously, the Big Ten does have some talented teams, but not every team out there is the cream of the crop. I mean, you got Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. That's really kind of it, if you ask me. And when you look at how he tested at the Combine, it's really, really impressive. 5.11 seconds at over 300 pounds and 6'6". Unbelievable. The 10-yard split was tremendous. The vertical jump, really impressive. And on top of that, the broad jump makes me go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And when you look at the relative athletic score, this is kind of a way to grade out the combine process and grade out their athleticism of individual players. He earned a 9.49 overall relative athletic score. The broad jump tested high. The vertical tested high. The 10-yard split was tremendous. The 20-yard split, the 40-yard dash, all really solid. And where the grades are only good, it's at the size. But I'm going to be honest, I like the size that he provides because he can still move at a very athletic pace. And there is some good news here around Olu Fashanu. You saw the note at the bottom of the screen. He suffered a right thigh injury running his 40-yard dash at the combine. But the good news is he participated in Penn State's pro day a few days ago. He moved really well, and he didn't look limited at any point during the pro day. And I want to dive into the PFF grades because I think it also helps tell the story. We talked about his pass blocking. Really, really good, an 88.4 grade. The run blocking grade could be better, but it's not terrible. Like, that's something you can work on there. And the overall grade is pretty impressive as well. The gap in the zone grade, not quite at 70, but he did allow 0 sacks, 0 QB hits, and 0 hurries. The 5 flags is something that does concern me. However, I think with good coaching, that can be fixed. Unfortunately, Dennis Allen's not a good coach, so whatever. That being said, I think that this guy is a really good piece, and I think that he could be much better than Trevor Penning, and I don't think he's a project like Trevor Penning was. But don't miss out on any of our awesome coverage, Who Dat Nation. I encourage you to subscribe for more draft analysis and Saints coverage around the NFL draft. If there's any sort of trade, if there's any sort of move, if there's anything worth discussing around the Saints in the draft, I can promise you we're going to talk about it right here. So lock us in for 100% free Saints coverage all throughout the offseason and the regular season as well. Now let's talk about what are the experts saying about Olu Fashanu. What does Mel Kiper have to say? Why did he pick Fashanu for the Saints? Well, let's ask Mel. As I mentioned last month, the Saints have seen 2022 first-rounder Trevor Penning struggle for 2 seasons. How much longer will they trot him out there at left tackle? I think it is important to note he did have an injury his first year. That's why we didn't see a large sample size, for Penning. But back to Kiper. In a deep and talented tackle class, they could upgrade in round 1. Totally agree there. Fashanu, who only turned 21 in December, has fantastic movement traits as both a pass and run blocker at 6'6", 312 pounds. He looks like he could play tight end. He started 21 games on the left side in college. And like I mentioned, over 1,300 snaps played at left tackle. All of them were at left tackle. All 1,300 snaps that Olu Fashanu made was at left tackle. And now, I will say this. I wouldn't mind going wide receiver at 14. I think that it could be a good pick depending on who falls to the Saints. And Mel Kiper actually even added that in the back part of his explanation. New Orleans might also be in the market for a wideout to pair with Chris Olave, who has put up back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons to start his career. Brian Thomas Jr. and Xavier Worthy are the next receivers up in my rankings. Like I said, I wouldn't mind going wide receiver at 14. I think that there's some really important needs there, and I want to see the Saints offense get more explosive, cheaper, and younger. To be honest, that's really all I want. And I'm a greedy son of a bitch when it comes to pass catchers. I want every single one of them. Give me all the pass catchers I can have, because I'm old enough to remember when Marquez Callaway and Deontay Hardy were your wide receiver 1 and 2, and that just wasn't really it. So let's go to Daniel Jeremiah, because he talked about Olu Fashanu as well. Pretty quick to the point here, 2022 first-rounder Trevor Penning has not worked out for the Saints. Fashanu is the new solution at left tackle. Can't really disagree with you there, Daniel Jeremiah. I totally, what he said is 100% true. Now let's kick it to PFF to round it out. Fashanu brings some concerns about how he deals with his power, but he's a fantastic athlete and a great pass protector who can still develop that power as a young player. The Saints can't just roll into next season under the assumption that Trevor Penning will be substantially better. That's 100% fair. Like, without a doubt, I totally agree with that. And I think that the Saints should go and add an offensive lineman, whether it's a Troy Fontenot, whether it's Olu Fashanu, whether it's Talisi Fuaga, if it's J.C. Latham. I mean, honestly, I'm one offensive line. Wide receiver or a Brock Bowers, sure, I wouldn't mind that pick at all. But don't overthink this. Add to the offensive line, get better, and make improvements. A lot of people like to criticize the Saints' offensive line drafts. Sure, Trevor Penning hasn't panned out, but What about Teron Armstead? What about Ryan Ramczyk? Worked out pretty well for those guys. They stuck around for a while. But Saints fans, I appreciate you guys for hanging out with us. And I want you to answer this question before you hop on out of here. What position would you draft in round 1? Are you going offensive lineman? Are you going defensive end, an edge rusher? Or are you going wide receiver / tight end? I want to hear what you guys have to say and get in the draft room. And as always, Saints fans, y'all stay golden. We'll see you next time.